What's up, lads and ladettes? How are we doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastically well. So, today we're going to be hunting some village boars and things like that. I've got this daily containment. I've got like 80 PED worth of universal ammunition to kind of knock around with. But I wanted to try out a little bit of a slightly different way of doing things for me. Not necessarily viewing difference for you guys, but a slightly different way of doing things for me. So, I really like doing these hunting videos just because they're, therapeutic and all that sort of stuff. They're nice and relaxing and all that good shit. But I was thinking to myself, how can I make that just a little itty bitty bit better? And I thought, well, what if before each one of these hunts I figure out what I want to talk about first, and then I can discuss in the video. That way every single hunting video not only has some hunting for people that tend to watch these things on a loop, or just as while they're playing the game, not only can I have that for the people that do utilize these videos in that way, but I can also talk about things that in my opinion don't deserve a standalone video, i.e., is doing XYZ worth it, or what's the best way of doing blah, because sometimes it's just not worth their own video, you know what I mean? They're just a little bit extra, that they're not really worth uploading something separate, so I figured, why not utilize this 2022 hunting series as a way to put across these thoughts. And one of the thoughts that I had, and hopefully we can find some bigger versions of these boars. I'm fairly certain we will, but yeah, I think we got to find some providers and maybe some guardians or whatever. But that's okay. We'll kill these boars, and I think these guys drop scales every so often, so that's pretty cool. I think every boar drops some kind of scale. So that could be, who knows, we might get one. But the thing that I wanted to talk about in this video is, would you be able to actually, make money in Entropia universe? And I'm not talking about, doing the free-to-play thing and making some PED, because, yeah, if you sweat an entire day, you can make 50 US cent or whatever. That's a thing that you can do. Or you can, if you get lucky in a hunt and you get like a big old global and you come out with a profit, then yeah, you might make an extra, you might make like, I don't know, 5 to, 50, whatever, USD. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about could you make a steady income from Entropia universe? And it's a question and a thought that I've had for, I want to say quite a while. Not like a redonkulous, amount of time, but just enough of a time for me to go, maybe there's a possibility of that being a thing that I could maybe do. But I wanted to go off of this as a business idea, a business venture, right? And like with all businesses, it requires a little bit of capital to start off with, either capital or a good idea. But in Entropia universe, I think you need to start off with some capital. So I went onto a website called Seek, and I looked for basically the cheapest franchisee that I could possibly find, and there was one franchisee. Which was, I think it was a gardening one, or a grass trimming franchisee, basically a gardening franchisee, right? And they were selling it for 25,000 Australian dollars, right? Which comes out to 18,000, yeah, I read it down, 18,420 US dollars. So, if you were to calculate that into PED, and let's say, you bought nothing but universal ammunition, and you spent the entirety of that universal ammunition, and all of a sudden, you didn't lose anything, and you came out with the equivalent of PED, which is like 180,000 PED. But you have decided that you want to see if you can turn this into a business, right? So you've been sitting there and you're like, yeah, I want to try it, right? So, let's say you've been working at, I don't know, like a petrol station or something like that, and you've saved up that amount of cash. And you decide, no, I really like my job. I'm not going to buy that franchisee that I was thinking about buying. What am I going to do with this 25,000 Australian dollars? And instead of putting like a deposit on a house or anything like that, because you're like, well, I'm not earning enough money to pay off, to pay the mortgage, and I'm already studying something, so I'm not really worrying about it. So what am I going to do with this money now that I'm not going to buy this franchisee? And you decide, you know what? I'm going to throw it into Entropia Universe. Right, so you throw it into Entropia Universe. And, you're like, okay, what can I do? And let's say that you go down the route that probably most people would go down. They go down the route of buying shares and deeds, and then they use that money that they get from those shares and deeds to do hunting and or mining, because you wanted to make your money doing that stuff. How much, what could you actually get? So looking at the current prices, which I also wrote down, I actually came prepared. Arcadia Underground deeds are like 95 PED if you can get them from an order. Calypso land deeds are 3,070 PED if you can get them from an order. That's what they've been going for, or thereabouts. So let's say you were able to get them at those prices. You could get either 1,894 Arcadia Underground deeds, or you can get 58 Calypso land deeds. Now, what would you get per week? Now, let's say per week you got, let's say per week the Arcadia Underground deed paid out 1 PEC per Arcadia Underground deed per day. Across an entire week, you would get 132 PED. But of course, you're getting PED each day. You'd be getting 18.94 PED each day. Calypso land deeds, you would be getting, according to what they say on the thing, I don't know if this is 100% correct, but it's just the information that I got, so, don't rage at me if I get things slightly wrong. The principle still applies. You'll be getting about 223 PED per week from the Calypso land deeds. So, could you turn that into, a job, right? Well, not a job. Could you turn that into a little bit of a side hustle? Well, I mean, you're already, with the Calypso land deeds, you're already making 22 USD a week, right? So you've popped hey, we got ourselves a nice little global. Look, I'm making money. I got a 35 PED global. Look, man, I'm making money. Woo, business. And that's another thing that will factor into it as well, like RNG and all that good shit, right? But let's say you go out and, you're hunting and all that sort of stuff. Let's say you pick hunting. So, if you're gonna be doing it, I recommend chillaxing for a few months. I say lay back for, do some basic stuff for, some free to play stuff or some small stuff for maybe half a year. That's if you spend the entirety of that 180,000 PED. But chillax for a while and get yourself a really good unlimited weapon, right? Get yourself a real good unlimited weapon. Maybe one of those unlimited weapons that people are trying to sell for 18,000 P or 20,000 PED, that sort of thing. So chillax for a while, or spend 20,000 before you actually get any deeds and get that weapon. So you got this weapon, it's high damage per pack, so you're going to be getting more varied, better varied loot. You don't have to worry about markup of weapons anymore, so you've got, that covered. And it's got a high efficiency parameter, which is just a TT variable. So, you get an extra, let's say you get one of those ones that are in the 80% range, so you're going to be getting an extra 6% TT return, so, even better. Even better. So, let's say 223 PED a week. You know, maybe invest a little tiny bit of that into more shares or whatever. And then, you know, maybe go out and hunt certain mobs. And I'm guessing by this point, you know, this hypothetical person, it like knows what mobs drop what. So maybe they go out and they're hunting Maphoids because, you know, they at that because they drop A101s, but they also drop tier 4 components and all that good shit. So, you know, they're after the A101, but they're also after the tier 4 components. And they're making, you know, they're making cashola that way. So, could you turn it into like a legitimate business, like a legitimate job, right? Hunting mobs to get the things that people need and then selling those things to those people. I reckon if given enough time, you could. And you might be thinking, well, 200 PED a week isn't enough. However, we also need to think about the fact that if you just use that 200 PED, there's also going to be confounding factors like RNG. So what if you do, while hunting a Maphoid, you get a 10,000 PED HOF, right? And let's say like 100 PED of that is tier 4 components. Maybe you get some other insane, you know, maybe you get some other really good insane stuff. You know, then you can grab that 10,000 PED and you could then pump that back into shares and deeds, or you can take that out of the game. Then all of a sudden you've made like $1,000, right? So if that is a thing that could potentially happen, and across a month, or you know, across a little over a month, you know, you'll be able to take out, like, if you didn't touch, like, let's say you decided I've thrown this amount of money into the game, and, you know, but I'm still going to do the free-to-play lifestyle. You know, let's say you are hardcore into that free-to-play lifestyle. Something's hitting me. What the fuck is hitting me? Maybe I can remove that by doing this. Oh. Yeah, let's say you're doing that whole free to play lifestyle. You could then, you know, take out you could take out like 100 USD like every, or nearly 200 USD like every 2 months, right? So you can take out some cash, you know, some beer money or whatever. You know, maybe get yourself something nice every few months. You know, get a couple of games or whatever. You know, like shit like that. So you will be making money just from the dividends alone. But Entropia Universe is one of those cool things where you can use your dividends to continue playing the game, but the more PED that you have to work with, then the higher chance you have of being able, or the better chance you have of being able to cycle through more mobs in a week, which gives you the higher chance of finding those rarer items, which, remember, we're not making money off of Mindark, we're making money off of other players, right? This hypothetical person. So let's say they do find like an A105, right? Which I think an A105 is going for like 800 PED, something like that, I think. Don't quote me on that, I think. But let's say this person has done that, right? So they're going out and they're hunting, you know, whatever mob drops these A105s. And you know, they've hunted and they've cycled through enough mobs where they're getting them, you know, and all that sort of stuff. Then if you're able to sell that for... I'm still getting hit. I don't understand why I'm still getting something attacking me. Question mark? Weird. It was happening earlier on today. Maybe there's like a glitch in the system or some shit like that. Oh well, as long as it's like misses and evades and I don't like get like deflected and things like that, then fine. But still, let's say you do, you know, you do decide to do it, right? You know, obviously do your research, you would find the right mob to hunt. And if you're mining, then you're just hoping for like a tower or a hoff or whatever. So you're just kind of like spinning the wheel, really. You're just going out, mining, selling what you get to other players, and then just hoping that you get something decent. You know, that mining, when it comes to that sort of stuff, mining is pretty simple. But hunting, you're hunting to find certain things. So let's say hypothetically, each week, you're able to cycle through enough mobs to get back not only the PED that you put in that week, but you got a little bit of a profit, right? You can then put that little bit of a profit into shares or deeds, depending on how much you got. So let's say you're able to put it into some shares each week. And then come the next time round, you got an extra 200 PED, and let's say you know, across that week you are able to sort of break even with markup and stuff like that. Well, then all of a sudden you got 400 PED to work with. And then if you're able to replicate that, then you'll have 600 the week after, then you'll have 800. And then you'll have 800 PED to work with, which, you know, then you might be able to hunt something a bit larger, go after like mobs that might have a little bit more. And sure, you might lose, you know, you might lose some PED and all that sort of stuff, but if you're hunting a mob that has higher markup stuff, let's say, you know how everyone says that the Crystal Palace has like the rare high markup loots? Let's say you do that, right? So you go to Crystal Palace and you're doing that. You know, then could the potential be there? If not within that first year of putting the 180,000 PED into the game, if not that year, across that whole year, could you build up enough PED for the next year to come out, you know, actually making a little bit of extra scratch? And when I say a little bit of extra scratch, I'm talking maybe $20 a day. Nothing major, nothing that's going to break the bank. But, you know, $20 a day over the space of a month, right? So that would be around about $600, which for a lot of people, $600 is like an extra $600 a month is like, for me, an extra $600 a month would be fucking crazy. That would be insane. But, you know, low income sort of thing. You guys know how it is. Maybe you might not, but it's just one of those things that I was thinking about. And, you know, we are getting close to the end of the hunt, so, you know, like, let me know in the comment section below, like, this little hypothetical thought of mine. Now, this obviously wasn't a how to make money in or anything like that. It was just a hypothetical situation, you know. You know, I found the cheapest franchisee cost, and then I equated that to buying shares, like buying deeds, right? So I equated that to buying deeds. So what do you guys think? Like, would that sort of situation, you know, if not the first year, the second year, or even the third year, like, let's say you're able to put an just from all that sort of stuff. Actually, let me just do some quick math. So across a year, right? So 52 weeks in a year, I think that's correct. If you're getting like 223 PED from the Calypso land deeds each week, across a year, you'll be getting like 11.5k PED. So if you're able to like work with that and keep around that sort of pace across an entire year, like, then you'll be able to add in more like the next year, and you could like just build up, right? Obviously, like, the more money you have to work with, so let's say instead of 25,000, you're working with like 75,000 or 125,000, or, you know, 10 times that amount, 250,000, you're a rich bitch, right? But for like 25,000 Australian dollars, do you think that the potential is there, as long as you play your cards smart, and as long as you're hunting mobs that give the markup loot that you're looking for to be above 100% returns, right? That's including decay and all that sort of stuff. Let's say, including decay, you get 105% back across an entire week. So that's an extra 5%. So what would that be? So, doing some more fucking math. So, so an extra 5%. So that would be like an extra 11 PED thereabouts a week on top of stuff. So I think the potential is there. Like in the long run, the potential is there. But, you know, it was just something I was thinking about. But anyway, let's have a look and see what we got back. Because we got that global, which was really nice. We did get that global. So let's have a look at what we got back. So we spent like... I actually didn't check my LR40. But I know I started off earlier today at around like 40 PED. So we wouldn't have lost any more than 5. But let's have a look at... Okay, let's just throw this shit down here. Let's grab all this. But thus and thus. 100 PED. So... yeah, we made like 15 PED if we account for some decay. You know, minimum 10 PED. So that's cool. I like that. Minimum 10 PED made on top of what we put in. That's always a nice thing to see. Anyway, guys, I'm going to be leaving it there for today. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new. And yeah, let me know down below, like, what are your thoughts? Because these were just my thoughts. Obviously, this wasn't a how-to. But they were just my thoughts, and I would love to hear yours, so let me know in the comment section below. You all stay safe, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.